with certain
Let
things.
me just ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Would you want a woman, if you were dating, right? Would you want a woman that slept with 50 guys or, maybe just 2?
I don't really place that much emphasis on body count. I think there's a lot of other factors that would go into it. So I can't make a reduction of an abstract woman who doesn't exist and make a claim about that.
All
It would
things
depend on the
equal.
woman.
All things equal.
I wouldn't say that I would have a direct preference. It would depend on the lifestyle choices as well. So for example, would there be things, because when you say all else equal, would you say they would have equal interest in career choices or equal interest in everything
What
else?
I'm saying is this. She looks, both women, so girl A, girl B.
Yeah.
The women are equal. They're basically copy and paste. They
Okay.
treat you good. Everything's good. The only thing that's different is one has a 50 body count. One has a 2 body count, right?
Sure. Okay, fine.
Which woman, which woman are you going to choose?
No STDs at all? Nothing?
Nah,
Nothing
man,
like that?
they clean.
Okay. No, yeah, it's equal. I don't care.
No,
I don't put emphasis on that.
No, it's totally fine. You're not answering my hypothetical. I'm asking you, which woman would you choose?
It doesn't matter to me. I wouldn't choose one over the other. You're asking me to choose between A and B, and I'm saying that A and B are equal. It doesn't matter to me.
So you really think that A and B is equal? When one had 2 penises and one had 50 penises, how can that be equal?
Yeah, I don't, because I don't think it matters. I don't know. Okay, cool. Someone shook the hands of 50 guys versus 2 guys. I don't care. It doesn't. It's not relevant to me.
Yeah, that was a poor analogy. He says shook the hands of 2 guys. Okay, man. Yeah, so
I'm not going to put that much emphasis.
You're being disingenuous, man. So you're really telling. Make a choice. How can you just answer the question though?
You're asking me to make a question between
the
things
reason,
that
and
I'm not viewing as.
It's a reason. It's a reason to it, because you don't think that promiscuity is a bad thing, right?
Correct.
You don't think that it's a bad thing. So I'm asking you this hypothetical to see if you're consistent, and you make a choice, bro. Choosing a girl with 50 bodies or 2 bodies? Make the choice. Let's see if you're logically consistent.
Sure,
if you were logically consistent, you would say that you'll choose the woman with 50 bodies.
Would I be willing to? Yes, absolutely. But you're saying all else equal, then it doesn't matter, because it's a neutral trait, because it doesn't matter.
Okay.
So you're saying one has blue eyes and one has green eyes. That's what you're saying. Because
so you think that
bodies.
Got it. So you truly think that a woman sleeping with 50 men and all else is equal versus a woman sleeping with 2 men, that's like having blue eyes and green eyes?
If all else is equal, yes, but I think often all else is not equal. That's the thing. I think very often there are things that are associated with people who decide to sleep around, such as sexually transmitted diseases. Such as sexually transmitted diseases. I was saying specifically that if people choose to have that type of lifestyle, they may not be prioritizing the same career path that I am, not necessarily. And that's something that's important for me. So if you're saying all else is equal, then fine, all else is equal. But if all else isn't equal,
what about the ability to peer bond? What about the you need the having the trust in her that this woman is going to be faithful to you? What about the character that?
Hold on. How does faith in whether someone's going to be faithful to you? Yeah. How does whether or not someone's going to be faithful to you is dependent on people they've slept with before? That is, are you saying that they've cheated on people in the past, or merely they've not been in established relationships and just decided to be with a lot of individuals?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is a woman that has a checkered past and she slept with many men versus a woman that didn't sleep with many men, only slept with 1 or 2 men.
Sure.
The probability is extremely higher in the woman that slept with more men to not be as faithful. The reason being is because it's stats on this as well, right? So data shows that when a woman reaches a body count between 5 or 6, the likelihood for her to maintain a long-term relationship drops down to 20%. Now, there's
What
studies done on this, and I could actually bring it up
data?
and share it to you.
Okay, I would love to
It
see
was,
the data that's done
yeah,
on body
it was
count, but
studies.
alright.
Oh, you didn't know that there were studies done on a woman's body count? Yes, there were studies done on a woman's
I'm
body
sure there's
count.
some studies. I would be interested in
There's
the methodology
also,
and how
and
to determine
I'll
those
even
things.
say this: there's also studies done when it comes to men being promiscuous as well, but it's not the same because men and women are different, right? So if a man versus a man with a high body count versus a woman with a high body count, the man would have to have like quadruple the number of the woman for him to experience just a fraction of what she'll experience as far as not having the ability to pair bond with her current or future mate. That's what I'm saying. So, what I'm saying is this, bro. You truly think that women, uh, the amount of partners that they sleep with does not matter as far as if they're going to be a trustworthy partner?
Correct, because whether someone slept with a lot of people is different than if they've cheated on people before. If they have not made commitments to people and they've not been, like, in monogamous
It
relationships.
shows that they don't have the ability to be in a committed
No,
relationship.
that's not true. It means
Okay.
that they chose
If
not to
it
be in a committed relationship. They chose to have a different type of lifestyle. Just because I choose to have a certain lifestyle doesn't mean I'm not able to do something else. Like, I don't that doesn't follow. They
Okay.
chose
So
not
why
to.
do you think that when you apply to when companies and HR and their recruiters reach out to applicants on their resume, what they're looking for is work history, right? And on this
Sure.
work history that they're looking for, they're looking at certain things to see consistency. How long has this person been at this job for and worked there? If they see that an applicant had work history where they worked at two companies for 5 years, they're going to choose that applicant over the applicant that worked at 10 different companies over the span of 3 years because it shows that you don't have the ability to stay committed
Well,
to the task at
so
hand.
first
That's
off,
what it
well,
shows.
I think this
So
is a
that's what
faulty
it shows.
analogy,
No,
though.
no, it's not a faulty
Well,
analogy
can I
because that
explain?
is
Okay.
true. How old
All
are
right.
you, Oliver? How old are you?
Oh, or okay. I'm 22. Okay.
22. Have you ever worked
Mhm.
before?
I have worked
You got a
before.
job. Okay, you got a
Yeah.
job. Okay, that's good.
Mhm.
Good for you, man. So
Yeah.
you would know that it's just basic, like human. It's common sense. It's common sense that past behaviors is a predictor for your current behaviors. That's true.
I don't actually think necessarily it is, and let me explain
You don't
why.
think that's
No,
true?
no,
Okay.
here we go. It
What
can be
about banks and
past behavior.
credit and
Wait a
stuff
second. No,
like
no, wait a
that?
second. No, can I go back to your previous point before you move on?
Sure. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so let's
Yep.
go back to this idea that apparently if someone had 10 jobs over a 3-year period versus 2 jobs that they worked at 5 years. I don't think that's the analogous comparison here. I think a better analogy towards someone who decided that they wanted to sleep around more, have more of that experience, and then decided that they wanted to settle down would be someone who maybe went into college and joined a ton of extracurriculars and decided they wanted to explore a ton of different things, interact with a ton of different people to see what they liked and see what they figured out. And then after that, they got internships out of it. They tried a lot of different things and then they found what they liked, which was this one thing. I think that is more analogous. And I would actually want to see someone, or maybe with a
Yeah,
resume,
it's
if we're
not
talking
more
about
analogous.
jobs.
That was the dumbest thing I've ever heard, Oliver.
No, it
Like
is.
that
I
is
don't.
the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay, so you know that men and women are different, right?
Sure, it would depend on how you define the difference, but of course there are differences between
Okay,
men and
so
women.
men and women are different, meaning that when it comes to women, you've been in a relationship before, yes or no?
I have been in a relationship. Yes.
Okay. Now, in your relationship, uh, forget about your relationship. Let's just speak in general. I want to speak personal about you, right?
Hmm.
Um, just in general, you would concede that women are generally more emotionally involved when they have sex.
I'm not. I mean, I'm not sure. It depends on the individual woman. I think that overall, I think the statistics do
Come on,
stuff do show.
Oliver.
What do you? I
You're
can't
not
make
even
general
living in
prescriptions.
reality right now, man.
What are you talking about? I think women. You're right. I think that women largely are more emotionally involved because they carry the
When it
burden of
comes to
pregnancy.
sex.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
carry the burden of pregnancy.
All right,
Sure.
cool. Now you're thinking a
Yeah.
little bit, right? So what I'm doing here, I'm just gonna ask you some questions, man, because you think that promiscuity in men and women isn't a big thing. I'm trying to display
Hmm.
to you that it is very important. You said that, I wouldn't care about a woman's body count. It's just like me caring about, oh, do I want blue eyes or green eyes? It really doesn't matter.
If all
What
else
I'm
is equal,
saying is,
but you put
if
that
all,
stipulation
but
in.
what I'm saying is, when it comes to body count, it's inherently it will not be equal because one showed sexual temperance, the other one showed no sexual temperance. She's a whore. She's a 304. So when it comes to the biology of the woman, she's more emotionally involved when it comes to her sexual partners. You said yes, right? So this would mean that if every time a woman is having sex with a man, she's she in order no this means that in order for her to have sex with a man, she has to be emotionally involved with that
That's not
man.
true. Well, no. You made a big jump. Women generally are more emotionally involved to this specific woman has to be more
Yeah.
emotionally involved. And that's not the case. There are some women who aren't more emotionally involved, who do engage in hookup culture and don't
We
feel those
know
strings
that
attached.
we know that those women are broken. We know that there are many promiscuous women out there where they don't have the same emotional attachment like a virgin would have because they slept with 100 men. So now they just look at sex as, changing clothes. We know that.
Sure.
There's exceptions to every rule. But I would say that that's still a very, 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 very small minority of women, right? Generally speaking, most women, in order for them to have sex with a man, they have to be emotionally involved. Yes,
For some women. I think it largely depends
for
on the
most
woman.
women. Most
Sure.
women are some.
I don't know. Have you surveyed all the women?
Okay, so you just don't know. All right. Let's just go back to biology then, since you don't want to concede on that. And it's fine. I mean, I've seen some of your debates. You don't live in reality at all, but that's fine. We'll go ahead and
I don't think we should treat people like homogenous groups. I
no,
don't think
no
we
one's
should
talking
treat
about
all women the
homogenous
same way.
groups. No one's is
Yes.
saying that we should treat people like this. And that's not what I'm saying. That's a lie. No one said that. I'm just pointing out, I'm saying how things is. I'm not giving any prescription. I'm talking
Okay.
about how things is. So don't go into prescriptions to try to clip stuff up to say something that I'm saying, which I've never said. We are speaking about how things is, not
Okay.
how I think it should be. So let's go back, right? You basically are saying again, because I want the chat to understand too, to all the newbies that came in. Oliver believes that a woman's sexual past doesn't matter. And actually, in fact, he said that if he has the option of two women, all are equal, but the only thing that's different is one has a 50 body count and one has two body counts. He would actually think that they're equal. He wouldn't
Yeah,
make a
I'm not. I
choice.
don't care. I'm
He wouldn't make a
I'm not.
choice.
Yeah, I'm
But
not that
then you
shallow.
did concede that women, when they have sex, they are generally speaking, they are the ones that are
Carry
they
the burden
tie
of
sex with
pregnancy.
emotions.
Well, they carry the burden of
Since they
pregnancy.
carry the burden of pregnancy,
They often
the
can.
men carry more emotions when it comes to their sexual mating
Not
strategy.
emotions. They're just more at risk. They
They're
they
more
they carry more of the.
emotional.
I don't like to weasel. I don't think emotional is ties into here. I think it is actually more logical if you are a woman who has sex to be more wary of who you're having sex with because you carry the burden of pregnancy.
Thank you for saying that. Then that would conclude that the woman that has sex with many men was illogical.
That doesn't necessarily mean the case. No, no, no,
You would
no, no, no.
choose an
You can
illogical woman
no, no,
over
no.
a
You made
logical
it. That
woman.
is a very nice sleight of hand, Cooley. But that's not
No,
how that
not a
works.
sleight of
No,
hand.
it
That's
is.
exactly
No,
what
no,
you
it's
just
not.
said.
No, 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 no. Because being more wary about who you're having sex with doesn't mean that you don't have sex with people. It means you can vet them more carefully, and you can still have sex with a lot of people and still make sure that they're not absolute scumbags. Okay, so it doesn't mean that you're being illogical if you choose to have sex with a lot of people. It just means that you might have to be a little bit more careful because if contraception breaks or something, you're burdened with the burden of pregnancy while he can just run off. Okay? So it
Who would
doesn't
be
mean that
more
you're
logical?
illogical.
Well, let's see.
What do
Let's
you
test
mean?
it out.
Not inherently.
Let me ask you a question. Let's test
Okay.
it out.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so a woman that has sex with two men. We're just gonna do
Hmm.
the same analogy, but we're
Go
just gonna
for it.
reverse it, right? It's so
Okay.
illogical and what's logical. A
Hmm.
woman that has sex with two men, she
Yeah.
showed she had just as many options as the woman that had sex with 50 men. She had just as
She's
many options. All let me
sure.
finish the analogy. All is equal,
Okay.
right? She had just as many options as the woman that has sex with 50 men, but she
Hmm.
chose to have sexual temperance and only and use logic and say, hey, well, my body is sacred. I don't want to give it up to just anyone. So I'm only going to give it up to 2 men where I find that they are worthy, versus the woman where she displayed less sexual temperance than the other woman, right? And she didn't view her, it's obvious that she doesn't view her body as sacred like the woman with 2 bodies. Who's more logical and illogical? Would you say that the woman that has sex with 50 men, but the woman that has sex with 2 men has just as many options to sleep with those 50 men? She only chose to sleep with 2. The other woman chose to sleep with 50. Who's more illogical?
There's not one that's more illogical than the other, because you have to, one, account for their preferences, what they want to do. For example, if a woman wants to have sex with a lot of men and she chooses to do so, then yeah, that would be more logical and aligned with her preferences than depriving
Doesn't
herself
it
of something that she
increase the
wants.
risk of all of the things you said,
Hold on.
like
No,
STDs and
wait,
all of
wait,
these
wait,
other
wait.
things?
No, no, no. It
It
can't. Yes,
does,
yes, it
because
does.
they're
But wait, no,
having sex
risk
with
is all the
more
time.
men,
No,
which
yes.
then increase the risk. But the
Hold on.
woman that had
Every
sex
time you
with
get
2
into a
men,
car,
she used risk
every
mitigation.
every time you get into a car, you increase the risk that you're going to get into a car accident. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't drive. You can exercise the amount of risk that you are comfortable taking on. Some people engage in very high risk activities. Some people go skydiving. Some people do dangerous jumps and things like that. And
That
they
was
are
the
being
worst
risky. Would it be?
analogy
Yes,
ever,
no, it is.
Oliver. That was the worst
Absolutely.
analogy
No,
ever,
just because you don't
Oliver.
like
It
the
was the
analogy
worst.
doesn't mean it's
No,
a
it
bad
was.
analogy. Then explain
No,
why
it
it's a
was.
bad analogy. Go
It's a
for it.
bad analogy. It doesn't map on properly. And I'll
Okay,
explain how
explain.
it doesn't
Okay,
map on properly.
sure.
Here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're speaking about the risk of a woman, and not only just the risk, but we're speaking about what's more illogical. So, one, you move the goalpost. You move the goalpost and you use an analogy to speak about risk. We're speaking about which
Well,
woman will be more illogical. So, one woman, look at here. I'm going to explain it to you how it doesn't map on properly. The one woman, she chose to have sex with 2 men, right? She
yeah.
had the same amount of options as the woman that had sex with 50 men, the same amount of options. But
Okay.
she chose to have sexual temperance, and she chose to operate in risk mitigation of basically out of all the risks that you said. So we would have to say that if she's looking at risk mitigation, if she's having sexual temperance, if she's looking at her body as well, I don't just want to give, my goods up to just anyone. We would have to say, well, she's thinking a little bit more than a chick that slept with 50 men.
That's not true that she's necessarily thinking more. What if the chick or the person who slept with 50 men enjoys
She
having sex,
she
enjoys
she
doing
she
that?
wanted it. She wanted those 50 men, right? Those
Yeah,
50 penises.
she wanted to have sex. Women
And you would
enjoy
choose
having
that woman.
sex.
That you would choose
Sure.
that woman over the one
All
that
else
had two.
all else equal, sure. Yeah.
There we go. He found. Hey, Chad. He just.
Oh, wait, well, hold on.
You finally answered the
Wait a second. No,
question.
no, no.
No,
You said
you
all
finally
else
answered the question.
equal.
So you want a woman that's more. You would
There we
prefer a
go.
woman with
Yeah.
a higher body count over a
No,
woman
it's
with a lower
irrelevant.
body
It
count.
doesn't
You
it's
literally
not
just fell
relevant.
into the
No,
trap. Yes, I did.
no,
Yes,
no.
you did,
Okay.
Oliver.
No, then
Yes.
if you want to
So
hold
this
on,
is what
if
I'm
you
saying.
poorly
You
phrase
want
your
no. Stop
question
it,
and I
Oliver. Listen.
respond to
Stop
it,
it.
wow, you
No,
really got
no.
me there.
Yeah,
You
no,
really got me
Oliver is
there.
very simple. Now let's paint the picture.
Yeah.
Let's bring this all back in because guess what, Oliver? We were speaking about promiscuity, right?
Sure.
Promiscuity. And within promiscuity, you said, I say that before a nation starts, a relationship starts. You say, well,
Sure.
promiscuity isn't bad. And then I say, well, okay, well, let's speak about promiscuity. Would you want a woman with 50 body counts or a woman with 2? You said, well, it doesn't really matter.
It
All is
doesn't.
equal. Then you
Yes.
just chose it must not be equal because you actually
No.
chose the woman with the
You
higher body
poorly
count.
you phrased the question in such a way that made it as if I'm saying that I would rather have a woman
Not
with 50
really.
bodies.
I kept
Yes, you
asking you
did.
questions where you went down a rabbit hole and then you was like, because you had an agenda when you were answering these questions. Like, no, I'm not going to give in. But then I asked so many questions, you gave in and you spoke the truth. You want
No.
the chick that been plowed by 50 men.
No.
So if you like that clip and you want to watch more, click right here. But if you want to watch the full episode, click right here.